Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Of the United States of America. The radical Muslim world has declared war on America.
Really?
We are at war.
Wait, no, that's not allowed. Stop. That's my opening from 9/11, 2001. How horrible of me to have said it like it was. That was terrible. You're supposed to forget that it was 19 Muslim hijackers. You're supposed to forget that it was 19 Saudi Arabians. You're supposed to forget that TSA let them into the country. You're supposed to forget everything. You're supposed to think that it was the Ku Klux Klan that attacked America on 9/11. You're supposed to think that it was Trump and Putin who attacked America on 9/11. In fact, there's a theory going around at MSNBC. They're trying to prove this. As far as I can tell, they're not going to be able to do it, but they're trying to prove that Trump conspired with the Islamo-fascist hijackers on 9/11 in 2001 to destroy the Twin Towers so he could build a hotel there. Ask Michael Moore. He's working on that theory, I hear. Yeah, right. Welcome to the program. Looters go wild in Fort Lauderdale. Tell me if you've seen that on TV. You did not see the Irish nuns looting the Air Jordan sneakers? You missed the rabbis robbing the sneakers in Fort Lauderdale? Why is that? They didn't show you all those black-clad rabbis looting at Fort Lauderdale during the hurricane? No, that was odd. I guess they were trying to protect the rabbis from any negative coverage. Yeah, welcome to the Savage Nation. Where are we today? Where are we today? Forgetting 9/11 is where we are today. Because of the Hollywood crowd, you've forgotten 9/11 already. Now, of course, the hurricane, I'm not going to talk much about it. How much can you take? Our hearts and prayers and all that. May the power be with you. May the power soon come back. But it wasn't the most powerful hurricane to have hit Florida. 1935, the Labor Day hurricane. I think that was before Al Gore was even a glint in his father's eye. His father was a big coal man. I don't know if you know that. Did you know his father was a coal man? Oh, yeah, Al Gore's father. Big in coal. One of the biggest coal magnates in history. Worked with a former, what was that? Arm & Hammer. I'm not talking about Arm & Hammer stuff that you put in the refrigerator. Although he created it, I think his company did. Arm & Hammer. Not to be confused with Arm & Hammer, nor Hammer and Sickle. But Arm & Hammer was a coal man. And he hired Senator Gore, that's Al Gore's father, to run the coal company. Oh, yeah, Al Gore is a coal inheritor. You know that. That's like the old statement at the pig slaughterhouse. We sell everything but the squeal. I don't know which one said that. But the Gore family apparently made it any which way to Sunday. They made it on coal, then they made it on carbon credits, then they made it on solar. You know, every which way you can sell energy. 1935 Labor Day hurricane, 186 miles an hour. All right. 1928 Okeechobee hurricane. Tropical cyclone. 1928, 145 mile an hour. 1926 Miami hurricane, 125 mile an hour, Cat 3 hurricane. So, yeah, I mean, Irma was a big deal. Went up to Cat 4. I have cat wiring here in my home studio. Cat 1. Good wiring. All right, what can you say about it? Let's clean it up and move on already. But they haven't stopped on the news. Why? Because they thought it would be worse. And they planned Monday through Wednesday to be hurricane coverage. They've done no other production. And so all you're going to see now are weather maps. Everyone is suddenly a meteorologist. The most hysterical being Andy Cooper. Imagine him having to get his loafers wet. My God. That must have freaked him out. Meanwhile, there's real news out there. I gave you the background. By the way, do you know the story about the Florida land boom? That's a great story. I don't know if you know anything about it. I'm not going to talk about my house and its construction on the beach and how it survived. I'll leave that out of this discussion. I don't think you're interested in my property, whether it be in California or Hawaii or Florida, wherever it may be. I don't think it's really your business, nor do I think you care about it. But do you know in the 1920s, Florida was one of the biggest boom areas in America? Hundreds of thousands of Americans poured into the Sunshine State in the 1920s. And the reason that happened was because of a great capitalist who built the railroad down there. Evil white man he was. Brilliant, brilliant evil white man. Visionary. Carl Fisher, the man who started the Indianapolis Speedway, teamed with developer John Collins to build a causeway to a mangrove island off Miami. Did you know that? Mangrove Island. And these visionaries, Carl Fisher and John Collins, turned Miami Beach into the world's most famous resort by 1950. George Merrick, the man who designed the suburb of Coral Gables, was involved. Florida land boom was built on swampy ground. Land prices were built on pure speculation, not on real land value. Of course, today is another story. But something happened. Land boom, then what happened? Bad hurricane 1926 that destroyed many Miami developments. And despite the boom in the stock market that was still going on, people no longer trusted buying Florida land. And so the land prices collapsed. And then, as I said, a terrible hurricane hit South Florida in September of 1928 with winds in excess of 125 miles an hour. And it traveled parallel to the Atlantic Ocean. It turned west across Palm Beach County and struck. And as a result of that, the land boom in Florida became a land bust. And it didn't really recover until the 1950s. I don't know if you know about that. It's interesting, the history of Florida. But it's all based upon land like that and the boom of Miami and other areas, all based upon the guts and brains of capitalists. If socialists had been in charge, let's say Bernie Sanders had been in charge, there would be no buildings in Florida today. Nothing. There'd be manatees and muck. But I suppose the greenies would like manatees and muck. They like to roll in the muck. Look at Burning Man. There's some good news today, by the way, which is the Supreme Court today. I know it didn't reach CNN's newsroom. The Supreme Court today just sided with Trump on the travel ban up to a point. You have to read it backwards to understand it forwards. The way it's so twisted in the news, I had to read it 3 times to understand what happened. The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday temporarily blocked implementation of an appeals court ruling which put limits on Trump's refugee ban. In other words, instead of saying what I said, Supreme Court sides with Trump on travel ban, the perverts in the media perverted the statement, so you don't even know what the heck it means. What does it actually mean? It means the Supreme Court said that the appeals court ruling that would allow refugees to enter the U.S. if a resettlement agency blah, blah, was no good. Now, there's one bad part of this. The appeals court ruled that grandparents and cousins of immigrants already in the U.S. cannot be excluded from the country, meaning the U.S., under the travel ban. What does that mean? What a crock of garbage. You know, in the Muslim world, there's an awful lot of cousins in every family. Since there are multiple marriages, they could have 200 cousins in a family. What kind of stupidity is this? What kind of idiocy is this? Why would a U.S. Supreme Appeals Court say that grandparents and cousins of people already into the United States can't be excluded from the country, meaning our country, under the travel ban? Why? You want thousands of them here now? How many of them have been vetted? Oh, we don't know. What is it, racist to want to live? Nah. Bah humbug. So I've given you already 3 openings in one. Looters go wild in Fort Lauderdale. Those would be the Irish nuns who were looting Air Jordans. Or was it the rabbis that were looting the Air Jordans? I don't know why. They're probably more stable on the feet while praying. You didn't see those pictures? That's strange. I don't know why they didn't show them. Never forget what radical Islam did to us on 9/11. If you like my opening from 9/11, it's on michaelsavage.com, the actual audio tape. Listen to Savage's monologue from September 11th, 2001. It's still as stirring. The original broadcast from 9/11, it's free on my website, michaelsavage.com. And I'm hitting it pretty hard now, the website, because I'm trying to rebuild it from ground zero. My website was like ground zero last Tuesday. Would you believe it? At my age, starting all over again. I start things all over again. I just start things all over again, building up my website all over again. Because I feel it could be my legacy. Like, this could last for a long time, even when I'm retired in Florida and playing jai-alai in a white cap through eternity. The website's one of the things that could actually keep going on. My name is on there, michaelsavage.com. Savage's eye camera. I'll post my photos. Teddy's Corner. I'm traveling tomorrow, so you won't have me on the air. So you better get all you can today. Stay longer. Listen longer, because tomorrow I'm in the air. I'm trying out my Air Jordans in an airplane tomorrow. I want to see if my feet are lighter in the airplane. I'm only going to L.A. I have a home studio down there in Beverly Hills. I'm going to broadcast from there. Nothing big. No complaints. Not whining. I'm going down to L.A. I have reasons to be there, which are my own. And thank God the heat wave is going to break by Wednesday. Oh, I don't like the heat. I get sick in the heat. My brain doesn't work. Thank God for energy drinks. That's all I can say. Oh, God, let me have another sip. You know, I feel as good as Arthur Godfrey must have felt when he drank that tea on the air. Remember when he was advertising tea years ago? No one knows who that guy is. But he used to drink that stuff on the air. 855-407-282. Pre-order Savage's forthcoming book, God, Faith, and Reason, it says. The search to find God. That's a great statement. Everyone's quoting that. The search to find God is the finding itself. That could be the one statement I've made that could resonate around the world, except with everyone except the Pope. The search to find God is the finding itself, because to the Pope, I don't understand this guy. Well, I understand him too well. I have a story I linked with my headline. It says, Marxist Pope meddles in U.S. politics again. He did, again, stuck his beak into our politics, told us to accept every refugee who comes here. Then there's a picture, sporting a black eye, Pope urges Colombians to reconcile. There's something odd about a white Pope with a black eye that I can't put together. Can you? I said it to the guys today before the show. I said, it's odd. A white Pope with a black eye. There's something weird about that picture. How did he get it? He slipped? Like in a bathtub? Wait, it must be in the story. Pope Francis wrapped the Colombian trip honoring a fellow Jesuit administered to African cutting in rocket when he bonked his head on his Pope mobile when it stopped short amid swarms of well-wishers. Pope Francis, who had only a hip-high bar, that's cute, hip-high bar. That could be a new rock group called Hip High Bar, to hold on to, lost his balance and suffered a bruised black left. Well, our hopes and prayers go out to the Pope to hope that his black eye is healed as quickly as possible. We hope that his eye heals quickly so he can continue to meddle in politics around the world. Still hasn't taken any refugees into the Vatican yet. Oh, this guy is very clever. I warned you about it. Do you remember in Government Zero, I wrote an entire chapter on the Leninist Pope? It was all based on logic, scientific method. I'm the only one in talk radio who has an actual PhD in a hard science. I don't read other people's opinions on science unless it's backed up with data, and then I draw conclusions based upon the data as best I can, even in fields in which I am not an expert. Because you don't have to be an expert in all fields to understand how to read data. You have to know how to read data, and you have to know how to read statistics. That's all you have to know how to do. But if you're a high school dropout and you're trying to talk about science, that's another story. That's all. 855-407-282. Have a good dinner tonight after the show. I'm so excited by it. I can't say who, but let's say big people in radio have come out to see me to talk about where we're going in 2018. And it's not going down, it's going up. That's all I can say. You know? It's good. The show's got some big things ahead. It's all up to God, though. It's really not up to me. I mean, that's the weird thing. I got to get into that one day. It's like we like to think that we generate and drive our own life. And to a certain extent, we certainly do. I mean, God helps those who help themselves, and we have free will. I understand all of that. And I'm a man who never, ever stops pushing. Ever. 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 Never give up. Never give up. If you wake up one day, as Freud said, if you wake up one day and find out you can only crawl on one arm and one leg, then crawl on one arm and one leg. Well, I still have 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 lungs, and 2 something else, which I intend to use for as long as God permits me. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. What is this creepy, whiny music? Who? Fleetwood Mac? It's a little like swishy. I'm not into it, and I don't like... Play another minute, all right, whatever, to bring him back in. Too slow. It's like a stoner heroin job. I don't want it. See, a lot of this music, I don't mean to get into music right now, is like written for people on drugs. Yeah. So I'm going to L.A. My mind's not really on all the stories, like Marxist Pope medals in U.S. politics again. I can tell you about that. Peru discovers bodies of 16 Chinese migrants in pre-Incan tomb. You're not interested in that. That's not talk radio fare. I mean, if you're used to listening to talk radio, which is on the level, let's say, of 7th or 8th grade, on the 7th or 8th grade, about 11 and 12-year-old talkers today, do you really want to hear about anthropology? You don't want to hear that. You're not used to it. It's sort of too highbrow. Peru discovers bodies of 16 Chinese migrants in pre-Incan tomb. That's so hard for Andy or Wolfie to compute they could never run this story. Because it would show that the Incans, the sacred South American Incans, were racists who enslaved Chinese who landed on their shore. You can't have that. It violates the agenda, right, Robert? I mean, if Chinese accidentally washed up at the shore of Peru in ancient times, and instead of welcoming them and making them egg foo young, they shackled them and put them into slavery, it means that the South American Incas were not these sacred beings that you would think they are, according to the protocols of today. But what can I tell you? Along with the bodies, the archaeologists found personal items belonging to the men. 16 Chinese men in a sacred pre-Incan site. Now, I'm not talking about inkwells. You know what pre-Incan means? I realize if you're only interested in the NFL, you don't care about pre-Columbian history. You care about golf, football, baseball, basketball, girls volleyball, and bowling, golf, things like that. But I think it's important to know about migratory behavior thousands of years ago. No? Okay, we'll throw it away. We'll put it into the fertilizer file. We'll get back to the important stuff like liberals bad, conservatives good.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
I'm just a boy in the basement. Welcome to the Savage Nation. We really change as we get older. That's the question. Welcome. I'm on the air. I guess I got to talk like I'm on the air. Hello. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. I actually don't talk like I'm on the air. I talk like I'm off the air. What's the difference between being on the air and the off the air? Want to put on a fake act like Andy Cooper? Make believe I'm what I'm not? I got to tell you something that's important. We're talking about ancient history, this history, that history. So as you know, I had other careers before I was in talk radio. I didn't just originate as a sports guy and then go into talk. Some do, some are good. So I've had other careers, and one of them was as an ethnobotanist, and a pretty good one at that. And my plant collections are in 7 museums around the world, which will live for hundreds of years, incidentally. But here's what I want to tell you. I wrote a book entitled Secrets of Fijian Medicine. And I don't even know if it was copyrighted. Something went wrong here because a Ghana in Fiji stole the book and started printing it. Some bookstore owner down there in Suva. Well, anyway, that's a long story. This was based upon my doctoral dissertation. And this was published with funds from the United Nations, which was the first book that the UN, I was told it was the first book the UN ever published at the time. And I'd received a grant from the Asia Foundation and the ambassador. It was a big deal to me at the time because it was such a new field, ethnobotany, meaning folk medicine and plants and how they may have healing properties. And I spent years going into these islands and living with folk healers. I didn't make a penny off of it. So I published the book. I don't know who sold how many, 100, who knows how many sold. I let the government have the rights to it at the time, and they sold it. We just looked it up on Google. You're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. Ryan, what's the price? A used copy of this book is going for $859. I said, because my son had told me that. He said, Dad, do you have any idea how valuable the work is that you did in the past, that people are paying over $800 for a book you published, I don't even know when, in the 70s. I don't know when this was published. So I'm trying to tell you something. I go for the long haul. I go for the long. I pull for the long. And the issue here is there is no issue here. That's the issue. There is no issue. Well, there is. I'm going to make a savage challenge right now. I challenge anybody in the media to produce any work that they have produced in the written form that's more valuable than this book in a used form. You can't. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? What I give you in politics is equivalent to what I gave the world in ethnobotany. They're classics. So why am I telling you that? Because I need to reinforce this every day. The media is so brutal. And there are so many backstabbers in the media that try to put you down, or me down in this case, and make believe you don't exist. That you have to remember the adage that if I'm not for myself, who will be, number one. And you have to tie that in with, if I'm only for myself, who am I? That's a great statement written in the 1300s by Maimonides, known to Orthodox Jews as Rambam, great philosopher. If I am not for myself, who will be? The answer is nobody. But if I'm only for myself, what am I? That's a very important part of that. Because everyone knows the first part, which is, living for number one. But if you live only for number one, then what are you? Nothing. I don't know. I'm just talking. I'm rapping it like a rapper. 855-407-28. I can't believe this. 1972. I can't believe these pictures in the middle of this book. Mrs. Whippy, healer, descendant of an English sea captain and Fijian mother. Healing Hands, Mrs. Whippy. This was taken with my old Nikon F. You talk about cameras. I used to carry a Nikon F. I have it right here. I love the click of that shutter. Anyone remember the day of the Nikon F in the 60s? Hey, raise your hand if you ever had a Nikon F. Yes, many of you out there had a Nikon F. Today it's digital. Great pictures, but I don't know, there was something more depth to these Nikon F pictures taken with the Nikon F in the old film. Look at the eyes of that woman. Well, you can't see it. Wife and son, 1972. Can't believe. See, this is what shows you how old you are when you're looking at your children when they were like babies. Oh, here's a good one. Ratea Biao, divulging her plant remedies one day before her death, Vanuatu, 1971. I remember that day to this day. I went in that village, asked for the folk healer, blah, blah, blah. She showed me all her remedies, came out and explained how they worked, and she died the next day. It's amazing. Domenico Coravembo, he was my best friend, this Fijian guy. Oh, did we have fun. What a great guy. With Sinuganga, ex-Coacaria agalocha. I can remember that to this day. The white sap of this coastal shrub causes blindness on contact. Yet when smoked over an open fire is an effective remedy against stonefish poisoning. Ask anyone who's ever been in the South Seas what stonefish poisoning is. It can kill you. You get stung by one of those fish. And yet the Fijians, through thousands of years of living in those islands, discovered nature's pharmacy, which is amazing to understand. If you're a white guy from America, you could easily become arrogant and think your technology is the most superior on the planet. And of course, in terms of our technology of today, it is. But if you were part of a culture that developed in these, quote, primitive areas thousands of years ago, and you wound up there, God knows how, by canoe or... See, this is all tied into the hurricane. I guess that's where my intuitive mind is taking me right now. You see the hurricane hits Florida. I'll tie it into something current, so you don't think I'm just rambling on out of nowhere. Okay, so you see what a hurricane can do. Now, picture a small island group of Melanesian people. That means black people who live in the islands in Melanesia. Now, picture them living there, let's say 2,000 years ago. It was longer than that, like 2,000 years ago, more than that. And they land up on that island in a canoe from Southeast Asia. And out of nowhere, they build an entire society. They learn how to feed themselves, clothe themselves. They fish, they hunt, long voyages in an open sea. Think about that. Then they develop not only a material culture, but they develop a social culture, social organization, a religion, art, poetry, song. Can you believe this? Do you have any idea how important this is to know? Well, this is why I was fascinated with these people. This is why I spent so much of my mental energy in those islands, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, the Marquesas. The reason was because if man could survive under the most drastic of conditions and create not only just survival. See, we all love these shows like Naked and Afraid or whatever, or The Survivor. We love those shows. But we're not just talking about eating off the land or fishing off the land. We're talking about developing a whole society off the land. This is the story of civilization itself, which is why I was always fascinated by it. I was always an apocalyptic personality, I guess is what I'm saying to you. And I always envisioned the day when civilization would be wiped out. And I was driven to understand how people could create such an amazing world for themselves out of nothing. So you look at them, you go into these villages, you go into the highlands of New Guinea in that time, and you see people, you can laugh at them, right? Because they're wearing first world rags. So you think that they're poor and stupid. You say, oh, look at those muscular guys, but look, they're wearing rags, that the white man threw it. But under the rags was a society that you cannot believe. So that's what I was drawn to. But I use the science of botany. They give you the plant, they give you the local name, and the local name would be Kinkila or Sasikila in Fijian. So then you have to take it back to the museum and you have to see what it actually is, and you find out where it belongs, what family, what phylum, the phylum, but Micromellum minutum, and then you put that in its place, and you find it's used for various things. Juice from the leaves is squeezed into the mouth as a remedy for white scum on the tongue and foul breath. I can make some jokes about that, but we're not talking about MSNBC right now. Hemorrhoids may be treated by chewing the leaves and swallowing their juice. Headache and sore throat remedies are composed of a fluid pressed from the inner bark. An unnamed part of the plant is employed in the treatment of an illness described as swelling without any opening. So they had their own medicine. And my hope was that by saving this folklore for the future, who knows what humanity might benefit from it. Just a side note, Secrets of Fijian Medicine, not for sale, can't find it. One copy on Google, on somewhere, for $823. $823. So again, I present the savage challenge to anyone in the media. Do you have any books, used or otherwise, that are valued higher than that? No. What's the point? I write, I talk for the long term, for the long haul. That's what I'm trying to say to you. You can easily dismiss me as just one of the pack. I am not. I never have been and I never will be, and I'm not going to sit here like I'm a member of the club. I have no club. There is no unity amongst the so-called conservatives. There basically is one group run by one organization. Everyone else is out. It's that simple. And I'm proud to tell you I'm not in that group. I'm proud to tell you I'm an independent. I'm proud to tell you I'm not represented by the same people the PAC is represented by. And I'm also proud to tell you that I've written God, Faith, and Reason, which will be out in November, but I'm starting to get just hyped up on it right now because I had someone read it who sent me the most beautiful email I've gotten in my life about a book, which I don't want to read to you yet. This person worked on that book as it was being written, and she had not seen it until I sent her the galleys the other day. And she said, I'm not going to paraphrase. The search to find God is defining itself. My one question is this. Will the non-religious person buy this book? Are non-religious people ready to look into a man who is as flawed as they are, who is atheistic as they are sometimes, and more religious than the most religious man you ever met at times, a man who is so bowled over by God at times that he can hardly speak, that his lips don't move sometimes in his awe for God, and other days he's cynical and doesn't believe in any of that crap? Is there anyone out there who's interested in one man's odyssey and struggle in this subject? I don't know. I will tell you this. This book, God, Faith, and Reason, is my make-or-break book. Either it's going to be the biggest thing I ever wrote or the biggest disaster. I don't know. And I don't know why I'm talking about it. I didn't even intend to. I swear to God, I didn't. I did not intend to talk about it. But it's one of those days in my mind, 9/11, 2017. I can't believe it's so many years since 9/11, 2001. I can't believe how America has so devolved that they've forgotten who did it to us, that if you even mention it, people are embarrassed. The polite society says, oh, don't say Muslim. Don't say Islam. Bring in more of them to show how tolerant we are. Don't be a racist. We need more people from Saudi Arabia. We need more of the Wahhabi sect of Islam in America. Well, what is the Wahhabi sect? I don't know, but it's better than ours. We have no religion. Our religion is one of greed and sexuality. That's our religion in America, but they believe in their stuff. They're good people. Get it? Ancient Incan discovery, secrets of Fijian medicine, God, faith, and reason. Never forget what radical Islam did to us on 9/11, 2001. Looters go wild in Fort Lauderdale, and other topics when I come back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
It is the Savage Nation. Did you know that a major credit reporting bureau announced a breach that could affect 143 million Americans? So far, the organization determined that the credit card numbers for about 200,000 consumers and personal data, including Social Security numbers, for about 180,000 consumers were accessed by these criminals. I don't know how, this is an important deal. Okay. Did you know you are 11 times more likely to become a victim of identity fraud if you are notified of a breach? Well, good thing there's LifeLock. Listen to me carefully. LifeLock detects a wide range of identity threats you may miss by just monitoring your credit, like someone stealing from your 401k. Hello? That's a big deal. But if there's a problem, a U.S.-based identity restoration specialist will work to fix it for you. We know no one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. That we know. But LifeLock can help you see more threats to your identity. So go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock, promo code SAVAGE. That's SAVAGE for 10% off your LifeLock membership. Visit LifeLock.com and save 10% now. Okay, simple. Now let's go to the callers. KSFO, line 4. John, go ahead, please.
Hey, Michael.
John,
how are you?
I got a pain in the side. What's up? I got a shooting pain in the side of my neck. Anything else?
Michael, this is John.
I got a pain in the side of my neck. What else?
I'm not a pain in the side of your neck. This is John from San Francisco.
And?
Oh, I just want to say, earlier you're saying in regards to how some days you're an atheist, some days you're a religious guy. I don't think so. From listening to you for the last 4 years, I have to say this. You have a true course. You have a true path. And I think it's a daily struggle for everyone of faith dealing with what's happening around us. And for me...
Okay, hold it. That's the most important point made today, dealing with what's around us. I take by that statement you mean a loss in faith in man.
Yes, correct.
And I take by that statement specifically a specific man who you lost faith in. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that specific man is the man we hoped would represent us in the White House. Is that correct? And you lost faith in him, and as a result, you're kind of drifting?
I have never lost faith in him because I truly feel that, his 20% of good is 120% better than Hillary.
All right, so that's my line, right? So we're getting 20% of what he promised, which is 120% more than what we'd have gotten with the complaining liar, Hillary Clinton. I get it. That is the way to look at it. But, I don't want to make Donald Trump the point of every radio show done for the rest of my life. I refuse to do it. But I think what you're saying is something bigger. What you're saying is in these troubling times, this issue of faith is one that affects all men of conscience, right?
Exactly. And I feel like every day that we all wake up, every day that we deal with, the guns, the ammo, the stuff coming, especially somebody like you, outspoken, without, you have your neck on the line for all of us. Hey, I live in San Francisco, too. I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian. And I sit here, and I'm in the media. I can't say what media because I worry about that. I worry about supplying, my...
Yes, the viciousness of the left is something akin to that in the Soviet Union in the 1930s. That is how vicious these good liberals are today. All the smiling, wonderful, good liberals who pat themselves on the back at these charity events, these operas, these symphonies. They are the Nazis of our time, only they have not yet built the ultimate end to those who oppose them. Make no mistake who they are. They're the enemy of our freedom. All these good people at the opera opening.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Traveler from an antique land. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Traveler from an antique land. Well, this is the Savage Nation in real time, not in antique times or future times. This is the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-400-7282. I'm Michael@Savage.com. I'm not talking about the weather. You want the weather? Go to the Weather Channel. Or get one of the new meteorologists and talk radio. Everyone's a meteorologist. What do you need me for? Watch the footage of the storm. Day and night now, the rest of the week. Storm, that's it. Like never saw a hurricane before. Never saw flooding. Never. That's all. Every schmuck on television. Every empty-head moron. Every college dropout is suddenly an expert on meteorology. I told you if it bleeds, it leads. If it burns, it earns. If it floods, it... Well, I don't have a rhyming word. So there we are. No, I don't do weather. No point to it. I'll do everything else. What do you want me to do? I can do anything. I'm a versatile guy. Tap dance, sing, play the harmonica. A friend of mine sent me a syllabus for a local community college that's very big on dreamers. You know what a dreamer is, don't you? That's someone from another country who's not a citizen who steals precious resources that American kids don't get. Of course they're dreamers. You'd be a dreamer too if you could rip the country off. You'd also be a dreamer if you lived in a stupid country that gave you something they don't even give their own children. Sure, you dream. Sure, you'd be a man and call them every name under the sun if they didn't give you what you were getting for nothing. If they suddenly woke up to the rip-off. And all the do-gooders who are ripping off the country. It only cost us $400 billion so far for the dreamers. I love everything I get every day from these left-wing groups. Dream of this, dream of that. The American kids, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they're not dreamers. Everyone else is a dreamer. So someone sent me a course at Sonoma State College. William L. sent it. There's actually a specialty called social justice. Could you imagine what this country will be like in 10 or 20 years with this kind of trash? Putting this into the heads of kids. Wait till I read the syllabus to you. Now, I want you to think about men like Boeing who built the first jetliner, meaning the first commercial jetliner. There'll be no Boeings. Or think about the men who built Miami Beach, who brought a railroad from New York to bring in people. There'll be no railroads. There'll be no developments, nothing. All there'll be is hate. Social justice studies required core, complete 9.00 units. Psych 34, the psychology of prejudice and discrimination. Not how to build a better bridge, not how to build a better tunnel, not how to build a better airplane, but the psychology of prejudice and discrimination. This is so racist, it's unbelievable. SOS 30, race and ethnic relations. Psych 40, introduction to psychology of gender. Can you imagine if Mr. Boeing had been forced to take this kind of brainwashing crap? Counseling 20. Complete any combination totaling at least 3.00 units from the following. Sex and gender. History, 18.2. History of women in the United States since 1877. So even makes it sound like it's historic. History, 21. Race, ethnicity, and gender in American culture. History, 26. History of Chicanos and Latinos from 1848 to present. Wow, is that kind of racist? How about history of white men from 1848 to present? Why isn't that taught? History 30, African American history, 3 credits. History of Mexico, 3 credits. Psych 34, we did that one already. And you get the picture. The leftists have destroyed the academy. They have destroyed learning. They've destroyed reason. The entire citadel of reason has been torn apart. You know, you saw them tearing down the Robert E. Lee statues. One way or the other, you could side with it. But when they tore down civilization itself with this trash, that was the beginning of the end of the United States of America and Western civilization, by the way. Area 2, Arts and Humanities. Anthro 31, Mesoamerican Origins of Latino Culture. Anthro 43, Native American Art and Culture. English 31, African American Literature. English 33, Chicano-Chicana Arts and Literature. Now here, this is a great one. English 36, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Arts and Literature. Oh, I can go on. It's just so depressing. Theater 6, Multicultural Perspectives in American Theater. Do you understand that we cannot have a civilization if it's this pointedly absent of civilization per se? If you so segment society like this, what you do is destroy it altogether. That's my opinion. I just wanted you to see what they're doing to our children in the colleges today. Social justice studies as a major. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how godless this is? You speak of God, faith, and reason. Social justice studies lack God, lacks faith, and lacks reason. It is pure, unadulterated prejudice. In plain English. Brian on KSFO line 2. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yes. I believe that your real mission is to bring people to God. It wasn't to get Trump elected. The only reason I started listening to you is because I was so invested in Trump winning. But along the lines, I started believing in God and started reading the Bible. And now I'm disenfranchised with Trump. He's disappointing us, but I have a strong faith in God now, and it's because of you. And I think that's your real mission. I think Trump was just a distraction that God used to have people listen to you. And
that's an interesting one. So God used Trump to get me to talk about God. That's interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so what's God's bigger role? What does God want?
You have a very solid, like you always say, you're very grounded in reality, and there's right and there's wrong, and that's becomes so complex.
Yeah, but what about when I do wrong? What happens then?
Well, nobody's perfect, but I mean, you wrote the God book. You brought me to God. I would have never started reading the Bible as hard as I did if I wouldn't have started listening to you. But the whole reason I started listening to you is because of Trump. So I don't believe that Trump was the real reason. Trump will eventually go away, whether it be 1 term or 2 terms.
That's right. Eventually, he'll be just another man, another president. That's right, like all of them.
Yeah, but my faith will still be there, and it's because of you. And
You're saying to me you were not a believer in anything before this?
Yeah, I was atheist. I mean, other people had been nudging me.
Wait. Hold on. This is a big deal, this call. You were an atheist, but for whatever the reason, so you started to read the Bible, and what happened to you? How'd your life change?
Well, it's just the Old Testament. It's so true. It's so raw, and it's just like you. You're so raw, and it's true, and there's right.
Yeah, I'm an Old Testament kind of guy.
Yeah.
I wrote years ago to somebody I knew 30 years ago who was a leftist, nice guy, but a very nice guy. He happened to be a friend of mine, and I said, God is a vengeful God. He liked that one a lot. I mean, I always liked hellfire and brimstone in the Bible. I don't like the watered down version very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the New Testament waters everything down.
I believe in crime and punishment in plain English, both in my life and in society in which I live. I don't believe in the gobbledygook about give the man another chance, because it usually doesn't work. The recidivism rate is pretty high. Take a look at what went on during the floods in Florida. Take a look at the looting. Take a look at that. See what liberalism has wrought.
Well, there's one story in the Old Testament about how if your son is lazy and an alcoholic, you're supposed to stone him to death.
I don't think we have to be literalists to believe. Here's my main point: is that the Orthodox Jews read the original Testament, which we call the Old Testament. They call it the Jewish Bible, but they don't stone people to death. They understand the difference between ancient times and modern times, but they still want to read God's original word to understand where the red lights are, the green lights are, and the yellow lights are. You understand why it is important to read the Old Testament. Even if you're a Christian and follow the New Testament, you should know what the original red lights were.
Definitely. I mean,
that's pretty good. That's really good, Mike.
Yeah.
That means that the energy drink is working.
No, nobody should be stoning each other to death. But
you should get stoned to death if you live in San Francisco. That's for sure. I mean, why do you have to stone to death when you're getting stoned to death? When the politicians are stoning you to death with marijuana and drugs, sex, and rock and roll, they don't actually have to use rocks to stone you to death. When they've numbed your mind and turned you into an idiot who doesn't even know that they're robbing you blind with green gonifs, railroads to nowhere, trains to nowhere, highways to nowhere, bridges to nowhere. They need to keep you stoned and stupid and tell you they're doing it for your own good. That's how they stone you to death today, right?
Definitely. I think marijuana is just turning everybody in.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. Okay, let's start the ball rolling today, Jim. This caller is going to be the first one on the list to get a free copy of God, Faith, and Reason. I've kicked it off now a week after Labor Day. I was holding it back. I didn't want to beat you up 3 months before publication. But we're only 2 months away, so I'll start it today. You're the first caller to get a free copy of God, Faith, and Reason. Get them down on the list. Start sending it off to the publisher.
That's awesome.
And that's how we're going to do it. I have a smashing migraine today. Smasher, a killer. Couple of reasons. May as well tell you why. No, it's an interesting story from my point of view. I was on my boat yesterday. I have a little boat. I once had a big boat. Now I have a little boat. I sold my 65-footer 3 years ago. I didn't want any more boating. It was enough. It was too much work. It was just so involved. I couldn't get any help here in the Bay Area. They're filled with the worst workers on the planet. Arrogant, horrible. To get anyone to wax your boat is a nightmare. Then to get a technician to fix it, they all have an attitude from here to Jupiter. Florida, there's lots of people who compete, so there's better attitudes. Here, there's no competition. I got fed up with them. The local boat yard, the worst people on the planet work for them, and they sent the guy out who threw a wrench on my floor because he didn't like my politics. It was an awful... I just sold a boat. All right, so I didn't have a boat for 2 years. A year ago, I bought a 26-footer or 25-footer, I don't know what. Neat little thing. And I went out on it yesterday. I could single-handed go out in the bay. It was a hot day. I cut the engines and just drift out in the middle of the bay when it's calm. And I was monkeying around with something in the hatch. I pulled the cover to look at the beautiful Volvo engine. And I leaned over the rail, and my glasses fell off my head, my reading glasses. And you watch them fall in the water. It's an amazing thing to watch when you drop something overboard and you can't get it. It's like I couldn't get it. So I thought, oh, no, not my reading glasses, yes. All right, the point is I have a couple extra pair, but one of them is like an older pair, and I don't think the prescription is correct. My right eye is killing me from using them last night. I have to throw them overboard. So I have only one good pair of reading glasses right here, and I have to travel with them. But I have a migraine from the glasses, man. You get the wrong pair. You are, I almost said the wrong word. You are, I can't use the F, you lose your reading glasses, you are fatumbled. That's all I can say to you. That's all. You're really fatumbled if you lose your glasses. You could tell I feel buoyant today. Why am I extra buoyant? Why? I'll give you 3 reasons why. The storm came, the storm went. They're without power, but again, they hyped you to death. They made it sound like an apocalypse was coming. Now, all right, some of it was hype, and some of it was built on fear. And thank God it wasn't what they expected it to be, but they had to err on the side of caution and get you to leave your house, right? See, with candles up. Okay, it's a big deal. It'll take months to dry out and all that. But I don't want to talk about it. All they're going to do now is milk it for every rating point they can get. And for those of you in the internet business, let me give you a little hint about your life. The Bible says man cannot live by bread alone. What do you think the Bible meant when they said that? It means that there's a spiritual element to our lives as well. Well, let me tell you something else. Man cannot live by clicks alone. If you're going to rate your whole life on how many clicks you get or what your ratings are, you're doing yourself a great disservice. Man cannot live by clicks alone. So I remember when I first moved to California in 74, it was great times for me. I met some wonderful people. They were just so different than anyone I had known. They were great people, very, very advanced mentally. And I went to a dinner once. They had a mother-in-law. She was in her 80s at the time. She reminded me of my mother, God rest her soul. And we went to lunch at her house in Monterey. She had a lovely small house in Monterey. And she created a big lunch. She was an Italian woman. Only, old world people can do this. Italians, Jews. I'm talking about the way it was done. She put out a feast for like 20 people all on her own. And before we ate, she said, she wasn't religious at all. She was quite socially advanced. She said, let's make a little prayer over the meal before we eat. She said, never forget that man needs more than bread to live. And at that time, I understood it very, very deeply. Meaning we have to remember we're spiritual creatures. We're not barnyard animals. We don't just go to a restaurant and stick our face into the pasta. We have to remember where the food comes from. That's all I'm saying. It was beautiful. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Hi, welcome back to the Savage Nation. Today we'll talk about Hurricane Irma. No, we won't. You want that? Go to the Weather Channel. I'm talking about everything but Hurricane Irma, including Islamofascism and 9/11. How's that? That went over your head already? Or looting in Florida? You didn't see that on CNN? Well, all right, whatever. So I found something. Oh, God, only a minute left? Where's the time going? It's like life itself. It's like the sand is falling down so fast in the hourglass, this show. Where's it going? Okay, got to read this to you. So over the weekend, I sent the galleys to God, Faith, and Reason. I have only 4 days left to get it to the printer, and I demanded an extra week. So I wanted a couple of people to read it. So I sent it to a young woman who did almost all the transcription of all of my narration over the year it took me to put this book together, including whatever. And she sent me an email after read it to you. This is fantastic. The content is inspiring and moving. I'm so impressed and so proud of you, perhaps inappropriately. I didn't understand what you were building when I was hammering just a nail here and there. What a precious book you've written. Do you realize how powerful those words are from a millennial? Do you how important that is to me? So I'm taking a huge chance on this radio show by even talking about God, faith, and freedom. I know most of you don't want to talk about it. You want to hear the same garbage day in and day out. I cannot do it. My body is changing. My mind is changing. My soul is changing. This is where I'm going, and I hope you take the ride with me, but I have no choice right now. I have almost no choice but where God is taking me, both on the radio and in the written word. It's as simple as that. And come November, once this book is out, I may shift the entire show content by 50% to this subject. And either you'll take the ride with me or you won't. I have no choice in the matter. It's where I am going. It's because I am not alone in this voyage. The wind is blowing me somewhere, and I've got to go there. Do you understand that sometimes things are more profound than we are?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
Maniacs disguised in false religious garb thought by hurting us they could scare us that day. But we Americans are not made of cotton candy. We are not seaweed drifting in the current. We are not intimidated by our enemies, and Mr. President, your military does not scare.
Good for you, General Mattis. Maniacs disguised in false religious garb. Well, I disagree with him on that, because these maniacs were not disguised in false religious garb. They were actually wearing religious garb, and it's based upon their holy book. Make no mistake about it. Sorry, Mr. Mattis. I don't go for revisionist history. The maniacs that you're referring to have been at war with the world for about 1,200 years. They've been trying to kill or convert people. But let's call them what you want. And you do the war thing, and I'll do the political thing and the intellectual, philosophical thing, and perhaps we will survive as a people. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. Today we are never forgetting Islamofascism 101 and never forgetting 9/11/2001. Never forget who did it to us. Never forget it was those who adhere to the Wahhabi sect of Islam. And you ought to study a little bit more about it before you bring more of them in and sit here screaming about racism, because we don't want more of them in here, you know. Learn what's going on. WABC Dan, line 4, go ahead, please. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael, I was so happy to hear you speaking about the Old Testament. I've been reading the Old Testament lately, and the thing I want to say is people don't realize the level of civilization that existed at the time. There was commerce, there was industry. People were not very different than they are today. Everybody thinks today they've invented human interaction when they haven't. Because in those days...
Well, I think what you're saying is man as a being is fundamentally the same as he was in ancient days. Isn't that what you mean? Technologically, we're different. On a level of civilization, we're different. But as mankind, we're still the same DNA.
Yes, because now today you can travel, greater distances in a short amount of time. But people travel then. They just, it was a different kind of... It was a different system.
Well, of course, look, you could say air conditioning changed humanity to a great extent. Birth control changed mankind to a great extent. Certainly there are things that have changed mankind, but at a basic level, we're still the same. We have not changed on the level of our biology, I think is what you're struggling to say, Dan, correct?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Thank you. And the point I want to make, if you remember, everybody, in the Ten Commandments, there was a piece in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, that means adultery existed then. People were the same. People lusted after other people. Every generation, when they discover sex, thinks they invented sex.
Yes. Well, it's like a dog that never had sex, all of a sudden has sex. It's a different dog, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I had a friend who said to me, he mated his dog when the dog was like 3-4 years old. The dog turned around and said to him, like, oh, my God. Why did you keep this from me before now? Wow, what a different world it is.
But I was so thrilled. I just started reading pieces of the Old Testament in a regular weekly missal that has daily pieces of it. And it's just...
Are you a Christian who is now reading the Old Testament for the first time?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you something. You're in for quite a treat. God, Faith, and Reason. I had a long discussion with my publisher about this for months, and they finally agreed to do something no one's ever done before, ever. Interspersed throughout this book, my text, my struggle, my odyssey, in and out of God, in and out of religion.
Yes.
Interspersed throughout are little bubbles within the text of Old Testament quotes that were not randomly selected, but came directly from my copy of the Old Testament, which I've had with me for 40 years with all those Post-its in it. Well, we selected a number of them, and they're like nuggets within the text, so that when a person reads this secular book, they find these little inserts from the Old Testament, so they get like a double out of the book.
It's a spectacular historical book, because I just...
Well, you haven't seen it yet, but you're not going to believe it, but you're on the list now, Dan. By the way, are you my friend, or I hear your voice. You're not my friend here from Marin County, are you?
No. I spoke to you a couple of months ago about...
You sound exactly like my good friend. I'll even mention his name, J.D. Hicks, the detective. You could be his brother. Maybe he listens to the show. You sound like him. I thought you were disguised as Dan. You never know.
No, I'm Dan.
Staying alive. I'm going to send you a copy of that. That's great. I guess I'm excited by it because, look, the storm in a certain way, Irma, I was thinking about that on my bicycle this morning. I said, there was an exclusion in insurance policies that said an act of God. Remember that, Robert? I don't know if you know that, but years ago when things would happen like this and you find out, well, the insurance company doesn't pay because it was considered an act of God. So, as a kid, I understood that. There were certain things that would just beyond coverage, like act of God. Okay, it wasn't covered. It was excluded. How is that? Because even as a kid, I understood that. There were acts of God that were not covered by insurance. Here in America, we want everything should be covered. I got a migraine. Is it covered? Right? This happened. Is it covered? I have a sinus attack. Is it covered? A flood came. Is it covered? A lightning struck the house. Is it covered? There are things you can't cover. You want to cover the 30 million people who were killed in World War II in Russia because of what the Nazis did to the Russian people? It wasn't covered. Okay? Their sons got drafted into the military and were killed like cannon fodder on the Eastern Front fighting the Nazis. It wasn't covered. The Russians didn't cash in the insurance policy and buy dungarees in the 1960s. It wasn't covered. When the boys went into Normandy and they lost an arm or a leg, or they didn't come back at all, not even a body bag, it wasn't covered. All the grieving widows, it wasn't covered. The whole world isn't covered with insurance. Okay? So certain things happen. 855-407-282 is the phone number if you care to join the conversation. Today we're talking about God, Faith, and Reason, which is my book coming out in November. But I got into it today because it's down to the galleys. Those of you in the publishing business know what that means. And I'm not talking about Irma. It's an act of God. Stop already with the ties already on Fox News. They're schmendricks. They studied poli-sci, in college. Now they're experts on meteorology. There they are. And look at the doofus there. Neil Cavuto, a nice guy, but one of the dumbest people in the history of the media. And you wonder why I'm banned on Fox News. I have nothing good to say about any of them. No wonder they don't have me on. No, I do. Some of them are smart. Mainly the guys who got fired. They're the smart ones. The ones that they threw off are actually the only smart ones. You know what's left now? Oh, God. The shoe and the leg. Look what the young Murdochs have done to that network. They don't care. You don't understand how that works. News Corporation is a small part of the bigger enterprise called Fox, called the family business. So if they have to sacrifice Fox News to lose a little advertising, to sustain and maintain the advertisers on the overall corporate thing, they throw the guys off who might have attracted some boycotts from the evil progressives in the advertising business. Any other questions? I got the answers. I have some good callers here. Minister, here's a minister calling. What did I want to talk about? Oh, I wanted to play some more sound for you before we... The time is a-flying. The time is a-flying. It's a-flying away. So Clinton has a book out that will not sell well, as you well know. My books outsell hers, no matter what the hype. Usually they do. And here she is blaming Comey, Russia, WikiLeaks, Facebook, fake news, voter ID laws, sexism, and misogyny for losing. I swear to God, you got to say, thank God she lost. What a complainer she is. Whining. She whines and whines and whines and whines and whines her way down. Here she is blaming Russia and everyone else for losing in clip number 10.
It has to be looked at in context with the Russians weaponizing information, negative stories about me.
Right. Russia
this whole
did it.
WikiLeaks beginning to leak in early October of John Podesta's emails, which if you've read them all, they're pretty anodyne, but they were taken out of context. Stories were made up about them. We now know Facebook was taking money from Russian companies to run negative stories about me. If you look at all of this, yes, it affected me and my campaign.
You're an embarrassment, and we are so thankful you lost, more so than ever. As flawed as Trump is, you are beyond being flawed. You are just now in the dustbin of history where you should stay. Here is clip 11. And you should thank God when you hear this one that she lost doubly. Listen to this now.
I am more concerned now going forward that we haven't come to grips with what it means for future elections. I would also add that the voter suppression that we now know had been in the works and really put into effect in a lot of states.
Throw in more in the
Wisconsin,
basket of lies.
North Carolina, et
Here it
cetera,
comes.
Played a role.
And
then let's not forget sexism and misogyny, which are endemic to our society, and certainly, as I write in my chapter called On Being a Woman in Politics, have to be factored in as well.
Yeah, tell that to gold in my ear. You liar. You're really a sick person, Hillary. You are a very sad, sick person. Misogyny endemic to our society. Israeli society was the most sexist society on earth, and they elected a woman called Golda Meir because she was 1,000 times more woman than you are. She was a leader. Do you understand that? No one. You see, I see things. I know the history of everything. She just said something that's so easily refuted, but you'll never hear this refutation on any news channel because they don't have my background. I'll say it for you again. Let's not forget misogyny, which is endemic to our society, which explains why she lost. In her chapter, Being a Woman in Politics, well, let's talk about some other women in politics in the most sexist societies on earth. How did they get elected? Shall I say Indira Gandhi? India is about as sexist as they come, but they elected her because she was a great leader. Shall I talk about, if I remember her name correctly, there was a woman in Pakistan. As sexist as a society can be is Pakistan. They elected a woman. Why, Hillary? Because she wasn't a loser like you, to make it very specific to you. You're a loser. You lost the election because you were unlikable. Even women didn't like you. So there are many sexist societies that elected women. Israel, Pakistan, India. I can name others. How shall I say England at the time? Margaret Thatcher. There was plenty of misogyny. She won. But they're not you. And you were nowhere near them. You're not up to a high heel of those women. You were always a mean-spirited, small-time, left-wing fanatic who was not capable of leading a nation. It had nothing to do with misogyny. It had to do with you. Yes, it's all about you. It's very important for you to understand how lucky we are that at the end of the day, and I would say it was God's will, she lost and he won. It's that simple. Okay? Now, having said that, I got to talk about something. Well, no, let's take a break, then I'll come back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. It is the Savage Nation. Welcome back, and I want to talk about sleeping in the hot weather, right? It's still hot, tossing and turning, drenched in sweat. You could run the AC, right? But why don't you just get rid of your heat-trapping mattress and sleep as cool as the other side of the pillow feels, as I do on my great Casper mattress. Casper's 2 high-tech foams guarantee you will have a great night's sleep, sleeping cool, comfortable, and fully supported on this great mattress. It ships for free in a box that's so small, it makes it easy to, carry it from your front door to your bedroom. And Casper does that so you can try it risk-free for 100 nights in your own house. Did you hear me? And if you don't love your Casper, they'll come pick it up and refund you every dime, no questions asked. Sleeping on a mattress is the best way to try it. Much better than lying on one in a, neon-lit store with people staring at you, right? From its breakthrough design and superior quality to its packaging and 100-night in-home trial, it is no wonder Casper was named one of Fast Company's 50 most innovative brands of 2017. So sleep cool and comfortable every night like I do. Get a Casper. Try yours for 100 nights with free shipping and free returns. All you got to do is go to Casper.com, use code SAVAGE for $50 towards the purchase of your mattress. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE, and get $50 towards the purchase of your mattress. Casper.com. Terms and conditions apply. WABC, Gary, line 5. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Hey, Doctor. Good to talk to you today. 16 years ago, worst day of our nation during my generation, and it's an honor. Thank you for that.
I'm waiting for your comment.
Oh, very good. Before, when you were talking about General Mattis, I actually served under the general. I was a Marine Corps veteran, and you said the fanatics were wearing fake religious garb. My interpretation of that is what they're wearing in the name of their religion, and then the message they're sending is his interpretation of the fakeness of saints.
Well, General Mattis said maniacs disguised in false religious garb. My position is that to them it's not false religious garb. It is actually their authentic religion, because it's taught in their holy religion to kill the infidel.
Yes, sir. Understood. I think General Mattis...
I understand how politically risky it is to say such things, but if it were not true, I wouldn't say it. And the truth is the best defense against any attacks I might have. And as a member of the Marine Corps, you're the greatest. You're the guys who are saving us, protecting us, as are all frontline troops in the military. But I'm afraid that most of you are not taught the truth anymore. I think it's been watered down after 8 years of Obama making you take the Kool-Aid.
Well, we clearly didn't vote for him, Dr. Savage. Anyway,
I hear you, and you're going to get a copy of God, Faith, and Reason.
I thank you very much for your time.
And stay on the line. Stay on the line. It's the Savage Nation. I have a big meeting tonight. My mind is half there, half there. It's my 2018 radio career is what I'm really interested in. Here's a little fact you should know. Many of you listen to this show not on a radio station, unfortunately. You listen to it on a stream. You get it on your iPhone or whatever. And many of you pick it up off KSFO's stream. I want you to understand something. And this is so important for you to hear. My show, The Savage Nation, Michael Savage Show, pulls more listeners on KSFO's stream than all the other stations in the cluster. And some of them are great stations with enormous following. And if you look at the average listenership, not only on that station, but throughout the nation, you'll find that this show pulls some of the biggest numbers in the entire country online. In fact, it's the number one talk radio streaming show in the country. What does that tell you? I don't know. It tells you what you wanted to say. But you have to ask yourself, if that is true, and I write 5 bestsellers in a row, why am I banned from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, CBS, NBC? How come none of them will acknowledge my existence? I think it says more about them than it does about me. And I think that, as I said to you before, the mystics say that God's word is seen in the white between the letters, not the black of the letters themselves. My absence on all of these alphabet channels that I just mentioned speaks louder than I do. My absence speaks louder than do I. And I thank you for listening to The Savage Nation. Be back in a moment.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
I'm gonna sit right down and write myself a letter.
Everyone sing along. For the bouncing ball. Well, our hearts and prayers do go out to the folks in Florida who are suffering, especially right now up in Jacksonville, which is a bit underwater. Unfortunately, I cannot do much to help you other than do what I do, which is keep the faith, baby. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-407-282. We are talking about many topics. I think the most salient point I made in the last hour, amongst many, salient amongst the other salient points, was Hillary complaining about her loss. Now, as you know, Hillary is given to hyperbole, as are all politicians, so there's nothing new about that. But for her to blame everyone on earth for her loss is an example of why so many women turned on her at the end and didn't vote for her. In one bizarre statement, and I don't know what happened to that sound sheet, she blames misogyny for her loss. And she says it in a matter-of-fact manner as though it's true. Well, I refuted that. And, of course, this is an important point because my refutation is bulletproof. She said it was misogyny because of our society, which explains her loss. Would you play that again, Robert? It's very important we find that soundbite that people understand what I'm talking about. It's a big deal, very big deal. Really, really, really big deal. Here is Hillary Clinton explaining her loss based on misogyny, amongst other factors, in the last election.
I am more concerned now going forward that we haven't come to grips with what it means for future elections. I would also add that the voter suppression that we now know had been in the works and really put into effect in a lot of states like Wisconsin, North Carolina, et cetera, played a role. And then let's not forget sexism and misogyny, which are endemic to our society. And certainly, as I write in my chapter called On Being a Woman in Politics, have to be factored in as well.
All right. You should retitle that chapter for the second edition. It should be called On Being a Lying Woman in Politics, because that's why you lost. It wasn't because you're a woman, but because most women can read women better than men can, and they read right through you, and then you're full of it, number one. So let me prove it to you, Hillary. Savage Savages Hillary. That's the headline that you won't see on any other website, but it should be all over the left, all over the right wing tonight. You won't see it anywhere because I'm not a member of the cartel that runs the talk radio business. If I were a member of the cartel, if I burped on the air, they turn it into a news story on 5 websites. But here it is, Savage Savages Hillary, about her big lie that it was misogyny that cost her the election. She said, let's not forget sexism and misogyny, which she says are endemic to our society. Okay, Hillary, are you ready? Because here's some logic that you can't refute. I will show you societies that are far more misogynistic, and categorically so, and have been since the beginning of their societies. Let's start with Israel. Israel's a macho society. It was more so in the 60s when Golda Meir was elected. She's a woman. Misogyny reigned in Israel then, more so than it does even now, and yet they elected her, Hillary, because she was a leader of the people, and they trusted her. You are not a leader, and no one trusts you. I can also tell you about Pakistan, India, Gandhi, woman. India is a very sexist society, very misogynistic society, in my analysis, and yet they elected a woman. Why? Leader, trustworthy. Margaret Thatcher. England was once a very misogynistic society when there were still men there, before they were all, let us say, retrained by the European Union into being nun-men who can only talk about soccer thuggery and such. But when England was still ruled by men, they elected Margaret Thatcher. Hillary, you know why? Because she was a leader, and also she was trustworthy. You're not either. So it has nothing to do with misogyny. And there I say is savaging Hillary on her false claim that it was misogyny which cost her the election. And now let's get on to other topics right here on the Savage Nation. The phone number is 1-800, I keep getting the wrong number, like 18 years ago, 855-400-SAVAGE. Let us not forget that today is 9/11. That was a tsunami that hit America and the world. It was not conducted by 19 Irish nuns. It was not 19 rabbis. It was not 19 Buddhists in those planes that hit the World Trade Center. It was not 19 Hindus in those planes that hit the World Trade Center. It was 19 Wahhabists from Saudi Arabia. Never forget that. You must remember what it is, and you must remember who hates you, or else you will lose the war. It's going on a long time, and we haven't won the war. That's another story for another time. 855-407-282. Let's take some calls on the Savage Nation. KSFO, Michael, line 1. Go ahead, please.
Dr. Savage, I have been a long-time listener of yours ever since 9/11, in fact. It was right after 9/11 that I started listening to you. And
wow, that's a long time. Thank you for the loyalty.
I've been a follower of yours for a long time. I am very excited about your new book. I love the way that you meld elements of faith and reason, because when I came to faith myself as a young person, it was mainly through reason. Every reason I had for coming to believe in God was really logical. And I think a lot of people put up this false wall between faith and reason.
They do, which is why I picked that title. I've worked on it for months, because I think it's the book to give to children who have gone adrift. I mean teenagers who can think. Because they say, come on, that's not logical, that's not reasonable, this mysterious guy in the sky. Don't give me that garbage. Well, they may find that it's not garbage when they read the book. They may find that you can be very reasonable, very logical, and still be extremely of faith as well. And I'm not selling a particular religion, by the way. I'm not out to convert anybody. I'm just trying to get people to understand that they're not alone on this earth.
I love the title, and I think that, again, it's something that people put up this wall. I also think, based on some of your earlier comments, I have to take one exception with I think a lot of people put up a wall between the Old Testament and the New Testament as well. While we definitely believe the God of the Old Testament is still the God of the New Testament. And, the same God who held a standard of justice in the Old has the same standard in the New. It really hasn't been...
that's a topic for a great conversation once the book is out, which is how Christians view Judaism. That's a whole topic unto itself that I'm not prepared to discuss at this time. I'm able to do it, but I'm not prepared to do it at this time. It's too far ahead of the publication, which is in November. I mean, people can peruse it on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. But, yeah, how do Christians actually view the Old Testament and Jews? Do they consider it an antiquated view of the world or the authentic view of the world? Then where does Christianity fit in? The fact of the matter is, as my friend Lorenzo Petroni, who passed away a few years ago, said, he was Italian. He said to me, Mike, same a corporation, different division. Stay on the line, and we'll put you on the list for God, faith, and reason. That was a great line. Wasn't that good? Someone should Mike, same a corporation, different division. It was funny. Does anyone have a sense of humor anymore, or is it only about weather? That's it. I think their minds are only on the weather, the flood. It's only water now, H2O. No other topic works now. It's H2O, and that's it. All right, well, man cannot live by H2O alone. Man cannot live by clicks alone. Man cannot live by ratings alone. Man cannot live by anything alone. We're a compound creature. We need many, many things. KVOR Radio, Monty on line 4. You are on the one and only Savage Nation. What's on your mind, Monty?
Yes, sir. After the election, I did my own poll, and I went around asking people whether they were Republican or Democrat. And I asked them, these women, specifically women, who did you vote for? And every one of them said, no, we did not vote for that woman. They didn't even say her name. Now, isn't that interesting?
Well, why did they not like her?
They didn't like anything about.
She blamed misogyny. She blamed sexism. She blamed voter ID laws. She voted fake news, Facebook, WikiLeaks, Russia, and Comey for her loss. She blamed everyone but herself.
Well, they didn't.
That tells you why she lost. Because the women were smart enough to know they didn't want someone complaining for 4 to 8 years and filling their head with lies which they knew were false. Hold on a line. There's another big reason that white women turned on her at the end. I mean, no one's really talked about it in any great detail. There was a huge swing vote at the end of white women in only a few states who turned against Hillary. And I think they woke up to the fact that the white bashing, the male bashing was going to reflect on their sons and their husbands. And they did not want to have their sons and husbands inherit a nation where they would be second-class citizens as a result of this woman. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
What they're looking at is a white, authoritarian leader who has murdered journalists and his political enemies, who runs a regime of repression, who makes aggressive moves against neighboring countries.
Is she talking about
who
Bill Clinton?
Considers himself an adversary to us, the United States of America.
Oh, she's talking about Bill Clinton. A white authoritarian leader. Oh, no, it was Putin. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about her husband. Pardon me. So here's Hillary again. And the reason I'm playing this is not to promote her, but to show you how lucky we are. Despite the problems we're having with Donald Trump and his moving away from the nationalist agenda, which is quite troublesome, we see what we would have had she won. It would have been a disaster, especially for white men and the boys of Caucasian families. She would have vilified your son for 4 to 8 straight years. And that's not happening under Donald Trump, thank God. So she blames everyone. Listen to now clip 9 here. She blames everyone. The data was wrong. This one was wrong. Everyone was wrong except her. Listen to number 09 on the Savage Nation.
I went from, I think, 26 points ahead to 13 points ahead. And I needed about 18 points in order to be sure I could win Pennsylvania. I watched how analysts who I have a great deal of respect for, like Nate Silver.
Are you kidding?
Burrowed into all the data and said, but for that Comey letter.
He is a burrow.
So it was very personal to me.
Now, Nate Silver is a disgraced pollster. He was wrong, and wrong again. And yet they keep holding up this jerk from Williamsburg, Brooklyn as some god. What do you mean, Nate Silver? Who is this guy? He's a stooge of the Democrat Party. Nate Silver. She lost. Usually when you lose, what you do is you don't talk about losing because it makes you sound like a bigger loser. She has no grace in her. We would have had this for 4 to 8 straight years, all right? Well, then we have Maxine Waters. Here is a case unto itself. If I were trying to define her in a botanical scheme, I wouldn't even know what phylum to put her in. I would not know what phylum to put Maxine Waters in. In a political phylum, I don't know who she is. The woman, you could say, is crazy. That wouldn't be good enough. Here is a woman in a time, especially on a day that was celebrating the memory of, never forgetting what Islamofascists did to us in 2001. Here she is talking about the Ku Klux Klan in clip 08. Listen to this lunatic.
I think we should focus a lot on domestic terrorism also. So I would like to ask again, given all that you have said about how difficult it is and the privacy concerns, do you have any thoughts about what we can do to begin to deal with the KKK and the white nationalists, the extremists, the alt-right? They're on the internet, Brett Bart. If you look at YouTube, you see how much they want to kill me and others. What can we do?
I have nothing to add to that. This woman does not belong in politics. Either she's senile or worse. She's almost a bookend to Bernie Sanders, who every day espouses Marxism as though he invented it. Every day talks about free things for everybody when the bum knows that we can't afford it, also knows what it's led to in other nations that have embraced free things for everyone. That bum, Bernie Sanders, as you well know, is a very smart man, but like the devil himself, he keeps putting out the big lie that society is unfair, it's unequal, millionaires and billionaires. And so again, we have socialism, Marxism, Bolshevism in the wind. And it's not going to end soon. The only thing that I have to offer you is the truth itself. And that's what I try to do for you every day on the show. And if I can deconstruct the liars, I do so. I deconstructed Hillary perfectly. No one could do better than what I did today. So now let's move on from Hillary to the next topic, which would be Hillary. Here is Hillary again in clip 15, again putting out more of her racist lies. Listen to this.
So there I was on the platform, feeling like an out-of-body experience. And then his speech, which was a cry from the white nationalist gut. What an opportunity to say, okay, I'm proud of my supporters, but I'm the president of all Americans. That's not what we heard at all.
I haven't heard that from you either, you liar, you. You would have been the president of all Americans when you vilified white men for 2 years straight, and you're still doing it right now. Why is it that this rich white liar, with her Clinton Foundation, how shall I put it in a pleasant way to avoid being sued, her slush fund, the Clinton Foundation, run by rich white people, why is the race of white so bad to leftists when they're all white? Can anyone explain that to me? Who exactly do they think they're appealing to? When did it become fashionable and acceptable to keep bashing white people, from white people especially? Hillary, Bernie, every leftist on television worth millions of dollars, all white men. How come they bash white people? Who do they think they're appealing to? Do you understand how insane this is, how sick it is, how racist it is, if you want to use that term? So again, she's saying at the inauguration speech she had an out-of-body experience and a cry from the white nationalist gut. Hillary, it is not the white nationalist gut that you heard. What you heard was borders, language, and culture. Anathema to a woman like you who does not believe in America. You believe in the world, not in America. You don't believe in borders. You believe in the erasure of borders. You don't believe in language. You believe in the Tower of Babel. And you don't believe in the great cultural foundations of America, do you? Your culture is built upon one thing only. Only one thing only. And it's not the U.S. Constitution or the Bible. It's built upon greed and deceit. Twins, like the Twin Towers, that long ago came down right underneath your feet and toppled you over into the dustbin of history, where hopefully you will remain forever.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Reminds He's not really on all the stories, like Marxist Pope meddles in U.S. politics again. I can tell you about that. Peru discovers bodies of 16 Chinese migrants in pre-Incan tomb. You're not interested in that. That's not talk radio fare. I mean, if you're used to listening to talk radio, which is on the level, let's say, of 7th or 8th grade, on the 7th or 8th grade, about 11 or 12-year-old talkers today, do you really want to hear about anthropology? You don't want to hear that. You're not used to it. It's sort of too highbrow. Peru discovers bodies of 16 Chinese migrants in pre-Incan tomb. That's so hard for Andy or Wolfie to compute they could never run this story. Because it would show that the Incans, the sacred South American Incans, were racists who enslaved Chinese who landed on their shore. You can't have that. It violates the agenda, right, Robert? I mean, if Chinese accidentally washed up the shore of Peru in ancient times, and instead of welcoming them and making them egg foo young, they shackled them and put them into slavery, it means that the South American Incas were not these sacred beings that you would think they are, according to the protocols of today. But what can I tell you? Along with the bodies, the archaeologists found personal items belonging to the men. 16 Chinese men in a sacred pre-Incan site. Now, I'm not talking about inkwells. You know what pre-Incan means? I realize if you're only interested in the NFL, you don't care about pre-Columbian history. You care about golf, football, baseball, basketball, girls volleyball, and bowling, golf, things like that. But I think it's important to know about migratory behavior thousands of years ago, Now, of course, the hurricane, I'm not going to talk much about it. How much can you take? Our hearts and prayers and all that. May the power be with you. May the power soon come back. But it wasn't the most powerful hurricane to have hit Florida. 1935, Labor Day hurricane. I think that was before Al Gore was even a glint in his father's eye. His father was a big coal man. I don't know if you know that. Did you know his father was a coal man? Oh, yeah, Al Gore's father. Big in coal. One of the biggest coal magnates in history. Worked with a former, what was that? Arm & Hammer. I'm not talking about Arm & Hammer stuff that you put in the refrigerator. Although he created it, I think his company did. Arm & Hammer. Not to be confused with Arm & Hammer, nor Hammer and Sickle. But Arm & Hammer was a coal man. And he hired Senator Gore, that's Al Gore's father, to run the coal company. Oh, yeah, Al Gore is a coal inheritor. You didn't know that. That's like the old statement at the pig slaughterhouse. We sell everything but the squeal. I don't know which one said that. But the Gore family apparently made it any which way to Sunday. They made it on coal. Then they made it on carbon credits. Then they made it on solar. Every which way you can sell energy. 1935 Labor Day hurricane, 186 miles an hour. All right. 1928 Okeechobee hurricane. Tropical cyclone. 1928, 145 mile an hour. 1926 Miami hurricane, 125 mile an hour, Cat 3 hurricane. So, yeah, I mean, Irma was a big deal. Went up to Cat 4. I have cat wiring here in my home studio. Cat 1. Good wiring. All right, what can you say about it? Let's clean it up and move on already. But they haven't stopped on the news. Why? Because they thought it would be worse. And they planned Monday through Wednesday to be hurricane coverage. They've done no other production. And so all you're going to see now are weather maps. Everyone is suddenly a meteorologist. The most hysterical being Andy Cooper. Imagine him having to get his loafers wet. My God. That must have freaked him out. You see the hurricane hits Florida. I'll tie it into something current so you don't think I'm just rambling on out of nowhere. Okay, so you see what a hurricane can do. Now, picture a small island group of Melanesian people. That means black people who live in the islands in Melanesia. Now, picture them living there. Let's say 2,000 years ago. It was longer than that. Like 2,000 years ago, more than that. And they land up on that island in a canoe from Southeast Asia. And out of nowhere, they build an entire society. They learn how to feed themselves, clothe themselves. They fish, they hunt. Long voyages in an open sea. Think about that. Then they develop not only a material culture, but they develop a social culture, social organization, a religion, art, poetry, song. Can you believe this? Do you have any idea how important this is to know? Well, this is why I was fascinated with these people. This is why I spent so much of my mental energy in those islands, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, the Marquesas. The reason was because if man could survive under the most drastic of conditions and create not only just survival. See, we all love these shows like Naked and Afraid or whatever, or The Survivor. We love those shows. But we're not just talking about eating off the land or fishing off the land. We're talking about developing a whole society off the land. This is the story of civilization itself, which is why I was always fascinated by it. I was always an apocalyptic personality, I guess is what I'm saying to you. And I always envisioned the day when civilization would be wiped out. And I was driven to understand how people could create such an amazing world for themselves out of nothing. So you look at them, you go into these villages, you go into the highlands of New Guinea in that time, and you see people, you can laugh at them, right? Because they're wearing first world rags. So you think that they're poor and stupid. You say, oh, look at those muscular guys, but look, they're wearing rags, that the white man threw it. But under the rags was a society that you cannot believe. So that's what I was drawn to. But I use the science of botany. They give you the plant, they give you the local name, and the local name would be Kinkila or Sasikila in Fijian. So then you have to take it back to the museum and you have to see what it actually is, and you find out where it belongs, what family, what phylum, the phylum, but Micromelum minutum, and then you put that in its place, and you find it's used for various things. Juice from the leaves is squeezed into the mouth as a remedy for white scum on the tongue and foul breath. I can make some jokes about that, but we're not talking about MSNBC right now. Hemorrhoids may be treated by chewing the leaves and swallowing their juice. Headache and sore throat remedies are composed of a fluid pressed from the inner bark. An unnamed part of the plant is employed in the treatment of an illness described as swelling without any opening. So they had their own medicine. And my hope was that by saving this folklore for the future, who knows what humanity might benefit from it. Just a side note, Secrets of Fijian Medicine, not for sale, can't find it. One copy on Google, on somewhere, for $823. $823. So again, I present the savage challenge to anyone in the media. Do you have any books, used or otherwise, that are valued higher than that? No. What's the point? I write, I talk for the long term, for the long haul. That's what I'm trying to say to you. You can easily dismiss me as just one of the pack. I am not. I never have been and I never will be, and I'm not going to sit here like I'm a member of the club. I have no club. There is no unity amongst the so-called conservatives. There basically is one group run by one organization. Everyone else is out. It's that simple. And I'm proud to tell you I'm not in that group. And I'm also proud to tell you that I've written God, Faith, and Reason, which will be out in November, but I'm starting to get just hyped up on it right now because I had someone read it who sent me the most beautiful email I've gotten in my life about a book, which I don't want to read to you yet. This person worked on that book as it was being written, and she had not seen it until I sent her the galleys the other day. And she said, I'm not going to paraphrase. The search to find God is defining itself. My one question is this. Will the non-religious person buy this book? Are non-religious people ready to look into a man who is as flawed as they are, who is atheistic as they are sometimes, and more religious than the most religious man you ever met at times, a man who is so bowled over by God at times that he can hardly speak, that his lips don't move sometimes in his awe for God, and other days he's cynical and doesn't believe in any of that crap? Is there anyone out there who's interested in one man's odyssey and struggle in this subject? I don't know. I will tell you this. This book, God, Faith, and Reason, is my make-or-break book. Either it's going to be the biggest thing I ever wrote or the biggest disaster. I don't know. See, I'm not going to crumble because the world that I believe in is coming to an end. Many worlds come to an end and new ones emerge. At the end of the day, you have to go back to yourself. You have to go back to your own family. You have to go back to the eternal, which is God, faith, and reason. You know, to me, reason is a faith unto itself, incidentally. Using logic, when it works, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. When you have been trained in scientific knowledge and reason, if you've been trained with Aristotelian logic, And when your mind functions perfectly, it's one of the greatest experiences on the planet. And I must tell you, there are days that it doesn't. There are days that I am so rattled by what is going on that I find even my reason is going. I'm telling you the truth. Today happens to be not one of those days. I feel it like a storm passed me by the other day. I don't know what was going on for a few weeks. I couldn't think clearly. I saw this whole thing coming apart. And I sent God, Faith, and Reason in its final form off to the printer. I wrote every last one of those words over the last 20 years, and I put them together in this one book. But I had to send it off, and I had no idea how much this book was weighing on me until it was gone. And I took out stuff that I didn't like. And like a big weight was lifted from me because I feel that that's my legacy. All I thought was this book has to last 20, 30 years or more. And I don't want one word in that book to throw people off 30 years from now when they say, who was this guy, Michael Savage, who wrote this book, God, Faith, and Reason? This is truly my legacy book. It's not even out yet, but it's so important to me to tell you why that book is more important now than it was when I conceived it. But I got to move along. We're 9 months into the Trump presidency, which is symbolically so important. That's the gestation period of a human baby. Did you know that? 9 months. And we're 9 months into this administration. And boy, can I make a statement now about what this baby seems to look like. I just saw the sonograms, and they're not good.
Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Go wild in Fort Lauderdale. Those would be the Irish nuns that were looting Air Jordans. Or was it the rabbis that were looting the Air Jordans? I don't know why. They're probably more stable on the feet while praying. You didn't see those pictures? That's strange. I don't know why they didn't show them. Never forget what radical Islam did to us on 9/11. If you like my opening from 9/11, it's on michaelsavage.com, the actual audio tape. Listen to Savage's monologue from September 11th, 2001. It's still as stirring. The original broadcast from 9/11, it's free on my website, michaelsavage.com. And I'm hitting it pretty hard now, the website, because I'm trying to rebuild it from ground zero. My website was like ground zero last Tuesday. Would you believe it? At my age, starting all over again. I start things all over again because I feel it could be my legacy. Like, this could last for a long time. Meanwhile, there's real news out there. I gave you the background. By the way, do you know the story about the Florida land boom? That's a great story. I don't know if you know anything about it. I'm not going to talk about my house and its construction on the beach and how it survived. I'll leave that out of this discussion. I don't think you're interested in my property, whether it be in California or Hawaii or Florida, wherever it may be. I don't think it's really your business, nor do I think you care about it. But do you know in the 1920s, Florida was one of the biggest boom areas in America? Hundreds of thousands of Americans poured into the Sunshine State in the 1920s. And the reason that happened was because of a great capitalist who built a railroad down there. Evil white man he was. Brilliant, brilliant evil white man. Visionary. Carl Fisher, the man who started the Indianapolis Speedway, teamed with developer John Collins to build a causeway to a mangrove island off Miami. Did you know that? Mangrove Island. And these visionaries, Carl Fisher and John Collins, turned Miami Beach into the world's most famous resort by 1950. George Merrick, the man who designed the suburb of Coral Gables, was involved. Florida land boom was built on swampy ground. Land prices were built on pure speculation, not on real land value. Of course, today is another story. But something happened. Land boom, then what happened? Bad hurricane 1926 that destroyed many Miami developments. And despite the boom in the stock market that was still going on, people no longer trusted buying Florida land. And so the land prices collapsed. And then, as I said, a terrible hurricane hit South Florida in September of 1928 with winds in excess of 125 miles an hour. And it traveled parallel to the Atlantic Ocean. It turned west across Palm Beach County and struck. And as a result of that, the land boom in Florida became a land bust. And it didn't really recover until the 1950s. I don't know if you know about that. It's interesting, the history of Florida. But it's all based upon land like that and the boom of Miami and other areas, all based upon the guts and brains of capitalists. If socialists had been in charge, let's say Bernie Sanders had been in charge, there would be no buildings in Florida today. Nothing. There'd be manatees and muck. But I suppose the greenies would like manatees and muck. They like to roll in the muck. Look at Burning Man. There's some good news today. I know it didn't reach CNN's newsroom. The Supreme Court today just sided with Trump on the travel ban up to a point. You have to read it backwards to understand it forwards. The way it's so twisted in the news, I had to read it 3 times to understand what happened. The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday temporarily blocked implementation of an appeals court ruling which put limits on Trump's refugee ban. In other words, instead of saying what I said, Supreme Court sides with Trump on travel ban, the perverts in the media perverted the statement, so you don't even know what the heck it means. What does it actually mean? It means the Supreme Court said that the appeals court ruling that would allow refugees to enter the U.S. if a resettlement agency blah, blah, was no good. Now, there's one bad part of this. The appeals court ruled that grandparents and cousins of immigrants already in the U.S. cannot be excluded from the country, meaning the U.S., under the travel ban. What does that mean? What a crock of garbage. You know, in the Muslim world, there's an awful lot of cousins in every family. Since there are multiple marriages, they could have 200 cousins in a family. What kind of stupidity is this? What kind of idiocy is this? Why would a U.S. Supreme Appeals Court say that grandparents and cousins of people already into the United States can't be excluded from the country, meaning our country, under the travel ban? Why? You want thousands of them here now? How many of them have been vetted? Oh, we don't know. What, racists to want to live? Bah, humbug. Where are we today? Forgetting 9/11 is where we are today. Because of the Hollywood crowd, we've forgotten 9/11 already. I can't believe it's so many years since 9/11, 2001. I can't believe how America has so devolved that they've forgotten who did it to us. That if you even mention it, people are embarrassed. The polite societies, oh, don't say Muslim. Don't say Islam. Bring in more of them.
Savage.